So talking about the strike zone, it's about 15 yards from the ball. Now listen, we're not going to tell the guys, we're not going to split hairs on this. You don't have time and space, okay? You're down there, you're in the combat zone. You need to make sure that you're not avoiding blocks, and I'll talk more about that in this presentation. Okay, so here's an illustration that I've got really showing no time and space here on the right versus time and space. So looking at the one on the left here, these kickoff guys are about 35 to 40 yards from the football. Okay, so they have time and space. We call that the fly zone. Okay, and they can avoid. Okay, they can avoid in that area. Today's presentation is going to talk about what you do when you're in the strike zone. You're down here, close combat. You don't have time and space. Okay, you got to use hands, you got to use your eyes, okay, two gap in some situations, but we'll show you how we drill that to make sure that we're maximizing the productivity when we're down in that zone, okay? So let's talk about what we do, okay? If we are down in that strike zone, we're going to use what we call a two gap technique, okay? Because you're really responsible for two gaps on this. Because on kickoff coverage, it's not always going to be so choreographed where you're always able to spill or always able to leverage. Okay, maybe if you're coming off the edge, okay, you can get away with that. But if you're an interior guy, okay, a lot of the time it's kind of where you find it, okay? So a couple things we got to talk about on this two gap. Make sure that we are totally clear on this. Our hands are going to be on the block, okay? We're going to press and separate. We're going to control the blocker. Our eyes are going to be on the football. The whole concept of two gapping means that you're responsible for the gap to your right and the gap to your left while controlling the blocker. Your eyes have got to be on the ball carrier so you know when to tear off of that block to make the tackle, okay? There's two variations of a two gap. It really depends how much time and space you have, okay? You can only avoid the blocker if he is out of phase, if he's not on the string, okay? So like look at this drawing I've got over here on the right. If the blocker coming to block you is not on the string or out of phase, okay, does not have leverage on you, you don't have to go engage him, okay, and be a human magnet there, okay? You go make the play. But the one on the left over here, that blocker is in phase with the football, so you got to two gap him, okay, which is what we teach. All right, so here's another a picture of it, okay, of what I just talked about. So we got the ball carrier number 21 right here. The blocker's number 1, okay? He's definitely in phase, okay? So this man running down on the kickoff unit has to put tight hands, tight elbows, okay? Control him, and his eyes need to be on the ball carrier to know where to tear off on that. We use this slogan right here, okay? Hands on block, eyes on ball, feet gaining ground. Okay, let me say that again. Hands on block, eyes on ball, feet gaining ground. Okay, when is it used? Okay, here's a game example of when it should be used because you cannot avoid in the strike zone. You don't have enough time and space to do it. Okay, here's a clip. We're looking at this man right here. He's going to run down. He's in the fly zone. He's in the fly zone. He's in the fly zone. Now he's in the strike zone. Okay, he's within 10 to 15 yards of the football. He cannot avoid this block right here, okay? He chooses to try to run around the block, okay? Poor choice right there. You'll never make the play, okay? He needs to two gap that block right there to give himself a chance, okay? So that's an example. Now let's talk about how we drill it, okay? How do we drill the two gap? Hands on block, eyes on ball, feet gaining ground. I will say this repetitively to the guys. We want to disengage with the blocker and finish on the returner. The distance between the blocker and the returner is going to vary a little bit, which will tell us how much time we can spend trying to control that blocker. Coming off the sideline with our 8-line drills, we use that format quite a bit. Okay, so now we're going to start off, okay, totally engaged. So I'm actually going to fit the players up, okay, with close quarters right there to really, let's work the drill from the front back. Okay, and all they're going to do is I've got the coaches standing back here, okay, and that coach is just going to walk in the direction, and all that does is tell them what side they need to tear off on. Looking at number 11 right here, okay, so his eyes are on the ball, his hands are on the blocker, and his feet are gaining ground. He's going to tear off and make the play. That's a really, really good job. Looking at 59 right here, same thing, gaining ground, working the tear off technique on the two gap once that ball carrier declares. That's a really good job. We'll do it to the left side as well, okay? Hands on block, eyes on ball, feet gaining ground, tear off, make the play. Okay, so important that we're emphasizing where your eyes need to be. Now we'll increase the distance. Okay, we were already engaged. Now we'll go about 5 to 7 yards from them. This is still not a big collision drill, but they are going to be able to get down in there. They're in the strike zone already. Okay, same thing that we just talked about, we just trained is applying. Looking at number 18 right here. Okay, boom, strike with his tight hands, tight elbows, eyes on ball, hands on blocker, feet gaining ground, tearing off and making the play. Do the same thing to the other side. Tear off left. Looking at number 26 right here. Okay, that's a really good job. Strike, continue to gain ground, tear off, make the play. Okay, so here's some good examples of two gaps happening in a game. We're looking right here at the man in the L3 spot, working down the field. Okay, so he's unblocked. He's got a back end blocker. He does not have time and space. He's within the 15-yard mark. He's at about 10.5 yards right now. The worst thing he can do is try to run around this block. He's going to get kicked out every single time. He needs to engage the block, explosive with the hands, make the play after he tears off. That's a really good look at it right there. Okay, here's another good look. Okay, these guys are going to be working down. They're going to get down in the strike zone. So they're in the fly zone, they're in the fly zone, they're in the fly zone. Okay, right about now, they're entering the strike zone. The worst thing that 19 and 5 can do is try to avoid these blocks. Okay, strong with their hat and hands, see where the ball is. Really, really good job right there. Okay, now I've got an example of about 6 guys at the same time, okay, doing a great job with their two-gap technique. Okay, they're in close quarters with the ball, 49-51. Everybody is using their hands. They know where the ball carrier is. They're controlling the blocker. Okay, really, really good job. Look at all those guys right here. Everybody is in control. Hands, 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 hands. They're not dropping their shoulder. They're not burying themselves. They're not running around the block. They are two-gapping. Okay, it's a really, really good example of it right there. Okay, so let's talk about how we drill this, okay, in a competitive setting. So we showed you where we come off the sideline. We're close quarters, okay? Now what are we going to do? Now we're going to get into a competitive setting and do this in a full speed exercise, okay? Let's talk about our strike zone compete drill, okay? Very similar to what we do on fly zone that I covered in a previous lecture where we're going to have 3 chutes lined up. You got to have coaches in charge of the kickoff guy and the kick return guy, and you got to have somebody else making sure that the players know who's coming up next. It has to be organized, because you're going to go at a very rapid fire pace on this. Okay, the kick return player is going to be at the 8-yard line, transition to power at the first cone. So they're going to go speed to power, flip their hips around, and they're going to work a settle and strike technique. Okay, restart the feet and give the returner space to run. Okay, the kickoff player, he's going to be at the 3-yard line. So we got about 5 yards in between the kick and kick return player. They're going to use a two-gap technique with their hands on the block, eyes on the ball, feet gaining ground, what we talked about. Time and space is going to dictate how long you stay engaged, okay, in that block. And the returner, you're just going to leave when the kick return man gets to the first cone and flips his hips. That'll give you, and then you can exercise good ball security here. We've done it where we've had the specialist as the returners, we've had kick returners as returners, different guys doing it. Okay, but that's an illustration of it. Let's watch a few clips of it in action here. Okay, so we're flipping the hips. So notice right here, we got 5 yards in between the kickoff man and the kick return man. Okay, very, very important. Ball carriers back here, we got our box. Okay, and over the years, I've actually shrunken down this. We used to go 10 yards, okay, or actually 15 yards, but we've shrunk it down to where it's only 10 yards from here to the front of the box. Okay, just to eliminate the collisions. And the biggest thing on this is you got to tell the kickoff man, I don't ever want to see your head drop, and I don't want you to lower your head. The crown of your helmet should never be involved in this drill. In fact, the face mask we really even keep out of this drill because I want to overemphasize tight hands, tight elbows, and really striking, okay, with our hands. So that way, because you can't keep your eyes on the ball carrier if you're burying your head, okay? Plus, you start talking about all those other injuries that you're going to invite if you start dipping your head and number one, coming out of balance on that, okay? So we want to be tight with our hands and our elbows, okay? with our eyes on the ball carrier, feet gaining ground. Okay, so here we go right here, 36 flips. He does a pretty nice job. He's in power, so he went from speed to power. 19 is going to shoot his hands. Okay, now that he's turned, it's clued in the ball carrier when he needs to take off. It's a nice job out of 19. Okay, now that kick return guy, 36, now he's straining. He's trying to restart his feet. 19 does a nice job. We're not tackling on this. We're just tearing off and getting our body where it needs to be.